February 20th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Karen. Roll call.
Bridget,
Here.
Chad,
Here.
Kelly,
Here.
Rick,
Here.
Brett,
Here.
Whitney,
Here.
Lori,
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Now I just need motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Any corrections?
No changes.
Okay, no changes. All right. Karen?
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes. All right, district vision and mission.
Did I do that?
Oh,
Rick's doing it.
Rick.
No, I just had it out.
Southeast Polk Community School District will learn, lead, and live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
All right, please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any public comments? Anyone? Was it, we received any? I don't think so. Okay. Well, before we begin the meeting, I just wanted to make a brief statement about some of the things that have happened in our district this week that I think we're all aware of. Many of you are aware of the medical emergency that occurred at Mitchellville Elementary earlier this week. We would like to acknowledge the quick actions of the Mitchellville community who quickly responded to the situation. We commend their rapid response to employ life-saving measures, contact emergency services, and respond to student needs, especially the swift actions of Principal Blake Keelman and the brave students who followed the staff's guidance. We would also like to extend our sincere sympathy to the family as they navigate this difficult time. All right, on the consent agenda. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, any feedback or, okay, great.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Okay, on to old and new business. Item A, confirmation of next hearing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Brett and Whitney. So that's March 6th and March 27th, our next two meetings.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes. Item B, the cooperative sharing agreements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or input? Okay.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item C, the Prairie Meadows Betterment Grant.
Motion to approve the
Proposed grant projects.
second.
Thank you, Kelly and Lori. Any discussion, questions?
Hope we get them all. A
Yeah,
lot of great ideas in there.
definitely. All right,
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Bridget,
yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
All right, item D, District 20, Summer 2025 project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lori and Chad. Any discussion?
I just want to make sure. Timeliness is always the issue. So I want to make sure that we invoice or PO. So we start these things as soon as we get the kids out of school. And we don't delay until July 1, starting projects that run us up against the start of school. So I know that happens a lot, so I'm saying it up front. It would be nice if we could start when the kids are out of the building. We don't waste a month, all of June, before we start on the summer projects.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Lori,
Yes,
Bridget,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Right, item E, second read of policies, the 600 series.
motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Lori and Rick. Any discussion, question? Nope, okay,
Bridget,
yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Okay, item F, second read of policies for annual review.
motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Lori and Kelly. Any questions, comments? All right,
Chad,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Bridget,
yes. Item G, high school early graduates.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Kelly and Rick. Congrat.
I have a comment on this one.
Oh.
One, how many is that this year for the numbers? I didn't count it. It's usually like 42, so that's why I was like, that looks like more than 42. Okay, and then the other question is, do they all qualify with our standards?
Yes.
They meet the standards, thank you. Okay,
Some of these kids have actually started in their college programs already.
Okay. you know, I have to ask that just every year. I take the place of Katie Temple. So, thank you.
All right, congratulations to those of our students who graduated early.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes,
Bridget,
Yes,
Chad,
Yes.
all right. On to topics for discussion. Item A, superintendent's report.
Thanks. Good evening, board. Share some good news and highlights from the last month. Since our last report, we have had one board visit. That was to Willowbrook Elementary on the 100th day of school. They were celebrating, and we were able to have a tour of the school led by students and got to hear a little bit about their data and MTSS process, and it was a good morning. Also, since that time, we've tried to visit the high school twice, but Mother Nature just has not been cooperative. So we will be looking at a later date to make sure we get to the high school. A few other things. Our district literacy night event from last fall, the Iowa Department of Education highlighted that statewide in their spotlight on literacy that they put out, I guess, to the entire state. So hats off to the entire team, but specifically Carrie Bernstein and Angela Shannon, who's here, who led that process. So that very, very nice and a feather in their cap. I think everybody hopefully has seen the Willowbrook Lunch Group news segment that aired with Officer Walker from the Altoona Police Department. Really cool thing and a heartwarming thing to see, but I wanted to share that that was picked up by a national publication to be shared beyond just locally. So I think that's something that's kind of neat. Preschool and kindergarten registration has officially started. We're off and running in the 25-26 school year. The Achieve Family Portal opens soon, potentially as early as Monday. And this allows families of students with IEPs to have better access to information on the state portal at any time. So that'll be a good thing. Lots of activities updates here. Since our last meeting, the boys swimmers had a strong showing at the state meet last week. We had individual qualifiers from both our boys and girls bowling team for their state meet. The wrestlers won the state dual team tournament and are in a commanding lead right now in the traditional tournament as well. On top of that, on Saturday night, we'll have two of our own inducted into the Hall of Fame. Former wrestler Willie Miklas will be inducted as an athlete, and then high school counselor Lanny Brand will be inducted as an official. So congratulations to both of them. Sticking with wrestling, but to the girls' side, Skylar Slade this past week represented the United States wrestling in Sweden. So good for her. Next weekend is the Ram Showcase for show choir. And our chamber singers were picked to be featured in the Iowa Choral Showcase this spring. So lots of updates there. And then one final thing here, just a calendar update. With this cold and wintry weather, the school delays this week means that we have now missed 14.5 hours, instructional hours. And remember, that's how we judge it on our calendar. So we are sitting at 1,080 hours exactly right now, which is by Iowa code, the minimum number of hours. And so anything from here on out will need to be made up. Board has complete discretion on those other 14 and a half hours regarding makeup or not. Either way, my recommendation is that we hold off until further in the spring before we talk about anything at this point. So
Get through spring break and then
yeah,
see where we are.
yes, it's Iowa and we know how March can behave.
Sometimes May.
True, true. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, B, monthly business services report.
Evening board, you have the monthly financials through January. Just a few of the highlights for this month. Revenues are up 5%, expenditures are up 7%. Textbook fees are up, textbook revenues are up 15%. If you remember correctly, we had started notifying families about outstanding fees. And every time we get a notification out there seems to be a significant bump in fees being paid to us the next couple of days after those notifications go out. So that's good. Concerning for the general fund, personnel costs are up 9.7%. We did have we had one extra pay for bi-weekly or classified staff through January compared to last year. Electric and gas costs through January are up 20.6%. And then our continued building, mechanical, and HVAC repairs are up about 58% this year compared to last year. Comes to all funds, revenues are down 6.2%, but if you take the debt proceeds out of there, we're up 3.7%. Expenditures are down 12.2%, mostly related to the construction costs and facilities and acquisitions, which are down 64%. Obviously, with the middle school being done and completed and the maintenance garage, maintenance warehouse being done and completed, those are the reductions in those costs. Other than that, nothing real remarkable happened during the month of January, other than our normal course of business. Any questions or statements on the January monthly financials?
Dropped out of the sky.
No, no money dropped out of the sky. No.
Right.
Other things in the business office, the audit has been completed. We'll be working on getting that report done with the auditors. We did receive notice here this week that based on our last year's audit report, the Government Finance Officers Association did award us, what is it, like the 173rd year of our certificate for reporting. So it's great. And then just working on budget for 2026, which we'll be talking about next. Any questions about that? If not, I'll jump right into the 2026 budget discussions, part two. We should have known SSA with this time, but it sounds like the Senate has dismissed themselves until Monday of next week. Just going through a few things. Sorry. Thank you. Again, just to remind you about budget drivers are up there on the screen. Supplemental state aid being the biggest of the drivers in addition to our enrollment. As far as what we know with supplemental state aid so far, the governor proposed 2% along with the Senate. The House had proposed 2.25% with some additions to it, including $10 to the funding formula equity, of which we will get. Transportation equity, which they tell us that will bring every school district down to the state average cost per student in transportation, which is good for us. We were well above the state average this past year. And an additional one-time supplement money amounting to about $22.6 million across the state. I don't know what that means to us yet, but we'll get a little bit of that money. Cost per pupil wise, what that means to us is the cost per pupil goes up from $78.26 to $8,002. Technically, that's $8,012 if you add that $10 onto it for the cost per student equity piece. We know that the wage agreements have not been discussed yet. I think we start those conversations next week, if I remember correctly on my calendar. We know medical premiums from a preliminary standpoint are less than 4% of an increase. And again, IPERS remains unchanged. Just to show you a breakdown of what we have for budget authority between 2 and 2.25%. You'll see there that we're still, from a budget perspective, based on new authority and what we have built in for salary increases, increases in non-personnel costs, and also increases to our employee number of employees. We're about $1 million short of what we have authority for in money. I wanted to talk about the federal level funding because that was something we discussed last meeting. We talked about how title programs are funded with federal dollars along with some of our special education programs. We have teachers funded by IDEA Part B monies that are flowed through the AEA to us. We also receive Medicaid reimbursements for special education services for our students. And the food service program is also funded primarily with federal dollars. Just given dollars wise, looking at the federal funding levels, you can kind of see those dollar amounts indicated there. Now, this concept is going to be, it's going to flow back to spending authority and what we get back and what cash we have. So from a special education standpoint, we spend what we need to from a special education standpoint. And the money that we don't get, we have a special education deficit on. Every year, the board approves that special education deficit. And then in order to get that cash for that, we go and we levy property taxes to get that cash the following year. From a spending authority standpoint, if we didn't receive the money specifically for special education and everything else had held constant, in order to get that money back for the special education dollars lost because federal funding is gone, we'd have to increase our tax rate by about $1. I want to make sure everyone understands that concept. So if the board so chose to continue with our special education programs and leave everything else alone, we would raise taxes by $1 to regain those dollars lost from federal funds not coming our way. That's significant. It's always been our choice here to keep tax rates the same, and we manage that in a way that we can do programming still with that concept. But what that means to us is that our continued solvency ratios will go down because the other aspect of that is that we can't cash reserve levy for more cash. So we spend special education dollars in 1 year and we don't get cash to refill that authority bucket following. So our authority remains the same, our spending authority remains about the same, but our money goes down, our solvency ratio goes down. It's a different concept. I know we talk about it all the time. It's a difficult concept to understand, but that's kind of the crux of what we think about when we lose some of that federal funding. What if we don't have federal funds? Do we maintain the same level of service for students? What do we do with title programs? So all these questions when it comes to losing federal funds or not having federal funds. And also from a solvency standpoint, we know that that is one of the main factors that they look at us as a school district when we go out and issue bonds. So our interest rates could be higher. So it all has a tumbling direct and indirect effect with some of the things we do. Food service programs, we get about $6.5 million in revenues for food service programs. About half of that money comes from federal funding as reimbursements. Do we raise meal prices for our communities and family? Do we reduce our food quality? Do we reduce services? Those are all questions. If this should happen, that we would come back to you and start making decisions on. Difficult decisions, obviously, to have. The purpose here to talk about this is just to make us all aware of it, to discuss and to have those plans in place once we know something is more purposeful or I guess indoctrinated by whatever agencies are out there. From a standpoint of tax rate, I wanted to show this slide regarding 2%, 2.25%. Those are the knowns that we have in a 3% supplemental state aid. So the publishing of Publish A, this is the one that shows what our property taxes we will receive for next year, our maximum levels. That notice gives us our maximum dollar amounts to be received for next year. If SSA were to go higher than our 2.25 or 3%, or how they do this, how they work those numbers, we can't levy more than what we publish for. So the reason in showing you this, although it's not a real big dollar amount, I don't have a mouse to circle, the total dollars are the second to last line from the bottom. Moving from 2% to 3% SSA is a very minimal change. It's about $7,000 there, as you see. But I want to publish at a 3% SSA just so we have that flexibility. That doesn't mean we can't come back to lower that based on what actually comes at the SSA. We just need to, it's time to publish something now in order us to meet the compliance and the laws when it comes to the budget.
Maybe publish 4, and then when we still get 2.5, we've at least covered ourselves.
Yes, we can publish 4, but again, it's not 4. I can't foresee or defend. 3% I
Have you
can.
got any inkling anyone's gonna go with 3? Because I sure haven't heard. that.
No, but there's the 2.25%, and then you have the additional one-time money, and then the cost per pupil. So all of that kind of buries itself in there. I just wanted to build us a little bit of a buffer with it. Again, from a property tax standpoint, there's not much of a difference in total dollars received. We can mess around with dollars in the management fund to catch. I can mess around. I'm sorry. I can manage the tax dollars between the different funds. This gives me that flexibility. But the bottom line there, the total tax rate itself won't change. It's still the same flat tax rate that we've had for the past 6 years.
But you're saying you have to publish the tax rate and the dollar amount.
Yeah, the publication A is actually about the total dollars to be received by the district, the maximum dollars.
The thing that's gonna get.
Correct.
Uses like.
Right.
Yeah, so this is, I know you can't see it here, but this is just the best way I can show it from what we have from a budget module. But this shows us, I wish I could, can you zoom in at all on that? Yeah. Well, when you're online, when you zoom in, the far left-hand column shows us what we have for tax rates and tax dollars from last year. The middle column shows us if we kept the dollars amount the same. And based on valuations, the last column shows what the tax rate should have been. I'm sorry, I should get better. I can't see it on this one either. I'm sorry. Basically, it's a publication that's done by the county. It's required by law, and it makes very little sense on how we do our budget. It causes a lot of confusion in the community when it regards to if we receive the same dollars, our tax rate should have gone down, but that's just not the case because things like our PEPAL fund, which is at a stated tax rate, because valuations go up, we're going to get more money. That's just how math works. A bigger number times the same number is a bigger number. So the publication itself just is meaningless from our standpoint, but
I think it's meant to confuse myself.
I don't disagree with you. But I'd like to publish again at the 3% SSA assumption and then showing the notification as such. With all that said, again, two public hearings, A and B. The B is the real one, the one we will work with based on what SSA actually will be, hopefully by the time we do this, and also what our spending will be for next year. Some of our deadlines here, April 30th is the final deadline, but I hope to be done and with the board in adopting the budget by April 10th. Hopefully, there is some finalization with SSA next time we meet on March 6th. But even prior to that, I've got to get the way it works. I've got to get publications in our paper 10 to 20 days before a public hearing and all those other rules. Yes.
More of a statement than the question. So I was just pulling up, just to confirm. Last meeting, we talked about the tax rate history and you had on the composite tax rate. It was steady, not steady, but we're potentially going to keep it steady at 1544. And so I guess this is a statement to my fellow board members. After that meeting, there was a post on Facebook that talked about somebody that had talked to a board member that said that we're going to raise taxes and we're going to cut programs. And that wasn't mentioned at any of this board table at the last meeting. And so somebody at this table is going out there, which is now, as we see this new chart, shows that we're going to possibly have to raise taxes and cut programs. I guess I don't really appreciate that we're not getting all the information at this table prior, before board members are going out and talking to people and the public about things that the other board members don't know. Because I went on there defending what I saw at our last meeting. And now I see, you know, obviously when this comes out, we're sitting here, we're gonna have to raise taxes. So I guess I would just caution board members to make sure that if you know something, make sure you tell other board members before it gets out to the public, because it does stir the pot out there and people are
Well,
obviously are,
he's saying we have to raise taxes if we lose federal funding.
no, I'm just saying, these are all projected.
This,
And
if you're referring to this
before
slide,
this even came out, somebody was out talking about having to raise property taxes based off of, because I'm looking at right here, the last board meeting that I was at. FY 2026 was at 1544 projected estimation.
And that's because we're
It's-
gonna use our money that we have in reserve.
So I mean, I get it. If we've got to have those conversations, we got to have those conversations, but this is to the board. If you get information that wasn't at the board meeting where everybody knows about it, please make sure everybody else knows about it, so we know how to talk to the community and share with them what's going on, because after I seen this, when it came out, I was kind of like,
Something you saw on social media?
this is nice. Well, yeah. But
I was
it-
about
but
to
it
say,
said-
it's been on social
but
media.
it specifically
Yeah.
said, I spoke to a board member who said we were raising taxes and cutting programs. Well, it's like, well, last meeting I was at, we were not going to raise taxes or we're not cutting programs because it's all preliminary.
Yeah,
Too-
based on
too
2
soon.
or 2.5.
So
Right.
that's all I'm saying about that.
But in this
Nothing-
meeting, he's saying.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
you don't
this,
have federal
Yeah,
funding.
yeah. So now
No,
it
we
comes to
are.
life, but I'm just saying it kind of put, you know, when that information gets out ahead of board members knowing, this isn't on admin, this is people sitting at the table. We've got to have a little better communication and make sure that we know what's being talked about, if that's the case. So obviously it's coming true.
Yep, just to clarify, this slide, I think you're referring to this slide here. This is
Still all-
hypothetical.
Hypothetically, but I
Yes.
just,
Correct.
He can make a million slides with variables.
I just want to make sure that when we're having those conversations, we're telling them, community, it's hypothetical, we've got to use, we're waiting on a lot of things, it's not, we're raising taxes, we're cutting programs, because that's when you get the fire out there and people get really concerned.
But
I
get
know
what
what you're saying, you're talking about, and I'm not sure if someone direct from our board spoke
Nobody said,
directly to her.
somebody, they didn't say names, they just said, I spoke to a Sally Spoke board member who said, and this was right after the meeting, that we're gonna raise taxes and cut programs.
Well, I know that there were board members from other boards in the area saying those things
It
publicly.
was our,
Our board.
it was our board, Saudi spoke.
Well, we're at that point, and that's what he told you at the last meeting, though,
Well,
because he said, okay, we're digging
But-
into our savings.
Different point, hypothetical, it doesn't mean we are.
No, but, and I agree with you there, but at 2 and 2.5 or 2 1/4, whatever it is, it's
No, I get what you're saying.
ridiculous. We cannot continue to go on like this. And I continue to say that. So
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
We have to have the knowledge up here.
I just wish
so
the
board
public would
members
wake
don't
up to
get
this.
caught behind information, because
Oh, and I can appreciate that. We need to make sure that everyone knows the same information so that when we're talking as a unified group. So I can understand that.
Yeah, we also need to understand though, that the public isn't, they're not stupid. They're watching the same thing that we are. They're seeing the same stuff come out and they know that we're gonna be short. And so, you know, I get what you're saying and I completely agree with you, but you also have to remember too that, you know, a lot of times you'll hear something, you may have a conversation with somebody who, you know, and then it's on Facebook because yeah, there's so much has been on
Well, I
the
guess-
Facebook parent pages lately.
yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. Community takes stuff, what they hear, but there's nothing on our documents that said fiscal 26. It was at 1544. Because
Oh,
I
yeah,
told them,
yeah.
last I knew, we were talking about numbers at 1544. And now today we're talking about 16. I mean, I think you get my point. I'm not gonna
But that's
beat a
again,
dead horse, but it's just.
we haven't, I asked last meeting about the Fed and what was gonna happen with what's going down. And he hasn't even projected out if we lost all $4.1 million of federal funding there on the slide. He just projected if we lose special ed funding. So
I completely get that, Laura.
it's all there in
talking about
writing. I'm
If
just
we
telling
Get
you.
information. Of 7, share it.
And I'm telling you, we kind of got that at the last meeting and we're getting it again today. But we've been getting it for a long time.
Okay.
And I think I asked those questions at the last meeting as well.
Yeah, these slides were specifically to address.
Because I
your
asked
questions.
about it.
Yes,
Like,
Yep.
what's gonna happen if this? Because we have to have a plan.
correct.
I know another district, a big district around here is cutting about 17.5 million. That's their projected over 10-year plan or something, correct? If I'm right? Today I heard they're eliminating their central campus ag or whatever they call it, Des Moines FFA.
Yeah, we've always managed our tax rate here where we haven't raised taxes. Again, we've dropped taxes since FY 2013 to the tune of about 30% of what they were initially. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is G, the classified staffing plan update.
Didn't see a light, so I wanted to make sure it was on. Good evening, Lori. Good to see you back up here. You might have been back at the last one, but I was gone. Okay, okay. All right, so this should be fairly quick. I think at the first board meeting I was at in January, Mr. Horton brought this up as an item to review or a discussion item about a few positions that we're going to need to add for next year on the classified side. So there is one change I do need to make to the third one down, administrative assistant for district programs. The supervisor of those programs told me just a few days ago that he believes that he doesn't need this position for a full 12 months and just will need it for 10 months. So any questions about these?
No surprises, I guess. Makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Do you think that it would attract better candidates if we did have it as a full-time position?
You know, it's hard to tell because I think, I mean, you could make that assumption, but you could also argue on the other side that there are people out there who are looking for positions that aren't 12 months if, you know, if they have a family and kids that they're busy with in the summer. So, but I probably haven't been here long enough yet to know what amount of applicants we get for certain positions yet. So I don't think I can give you a totally qualified answer on that.
So I'm looking at your estimated cost, and is that $21.17 to start off with for an office secretary? That's the pay range?
Yeah, I would, yes, what is listed there is a pay range. How that was formulated, I don't quite know, because I'm not sure if we have a super set specific pay range for our secretarial positions.
$25,000 a year. Is that the right range?
We can dig into that and I'll get it back to you. This will come back to you
That doesn't seem.
next
like the-
meeting. Yeah.
These just seem kind of low. So
That I would say from what I've seen so far, that hourly rate for a secretarial position for someone new starting here would be pretty in line with the few things I've seen so far. So
Is
and
that,
this is a full-time position? Because it says part-time to full-time, so you're
10
gonna take a
months.
part-timer and move them to full-time?
yeah. So well, there's a part-time position that needs to go to full-time. Now I don't know if I don't know yet if that person who's in it is staying in it or not. So I don't have those details, but
and that's a 10-month position or
Secretary.
yeah, at elementary, it's probably I don't have my sheet up anymore, but probably 198 day or 211 day position. I'm not sure which, but
I just think whatever, you guys figure that out. I think that's awful low compared to what I've seen in the salary ranges of
Yeah.
10 months and 12 months.
do you mean here at Southeast Polk or?
Well, that too, but even in wages for positions. So I don't know if that's just a base thing and you guys add.
Yeah,
do
I'll get that info for
Yeah.
you. There's
It's not very much right there.
they've got their agreement, so we'll base it off of that and
I'm
I'll send it out to you tomorrow.
Delving in too deep right now, because this is, you guys figure it out. But I'm asking the question.
I can see the difference, a full-time secretary, all the costs are down to 5,000, compensation wise. Part-times, there are no benefits involved, it's about 20.
So it's coming in at 24,000 a year for 40-hour work week. And that's pretty low.
I'm guessing that's the other half. As it's moving from part-time to
I'm
full-time.
an income person and that's what I do. So I'm like, I don't think that's good, but okay.
I think the first half is costed in and that's the other half added.
Okay.
any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item E, academic core task force update.
Good evening, board. Here tonight to present one of our reports this year on our task force. And so I'll just briefly, I've gone through this model before, so I'll just provide a brief update that you're aware of our district improvement goals. And through our studies last year, we have organized a structure of task forces to help address those goals and to help us continue to improve and meet those goals. So the purpose of our task forces is to make sure that all of our students are learning at high levels, and we define that at grade level or higher, and using data and identified needs to help organize those structures. So when we looked at the steps to a task force, they really mirrored the steps that we were taking in our school improvement plans. So the difference with our task forces is that we are maximizing one of our great strengths here at Southeast Polk, and that is our structure of teacher leadership. So bringing in our instructional coaches and our teacher leaders, our model teachers, to help work in teams to help work towards our school improvement goals. And I know, Brett, this is a question that you have asked over time. We are currently looking at this as a minimum of a 3-year project. So this has been year 1, an overview year. And our teams have engaged in learning, and we'll be making at the end of the year some key findings and recommendations. Next year, the focus will be on implementation. So taking these key findings and best practices and making sure that we're supporting the implementation in the classroom. And then year 3, we'll focus on the impact. So what results do we see as a result of this work, and what kind of impact has this had on student learning, and how do we keep this sustainable over time? So again, we've lined up our task forces with our school improvement goals. So tonight we're here to focus on goal number 2, the academic core, and that is divided up into 3 areas. We have disciplinary literacy, math, and science. And I'm very happy this evening to have members of our teaching and learning team. We have Jim Pfeiffer, who's our pre-K-12 science coordinator, Angie Shannon, who is our secondary literacy coordinator, and Jane Beecham, who is our pre-K-12 math coordinator. So I'm going to turn it over to them to tell a little bit more about the work of the task forces. And I believe Angie is up first.
Good evening, board. Thank you again for giving us the time to share our task forces. We started this work in September, and this is the amazing group of staff that I've got the privilege of working with. There are 13 total, with a wealth of knowledge and experience that they bring to our team. What I love about this is K through 12 is a part of this task force, and we span 5 different buildings with that. So it's been great to have that. Like Joellen said, our goal is there, and it really goes back to that academic excellence currently, right now, within the classroom, but also life beyond Southeast Polk and building that framework. Our goal specifically for the disciplinary literacy task force is to really look at those literacy skills across all content areas. So utilizing best practices and being able to put that into their math class, their science class, any of their content areas that they are looking at. And what does reading and writing look like when they're in those content areas? So like I said, we started this work way back in September. And at that time, this was obviously very new for all of us. So even though we have a wealth of knowledge and experience, we all came from different places, different backgrounds, different education. And, you know, what does it look like when I'm teaching advanced science classes at the high school versus I'm teaching 3rd grade at Willowbrook Elementary? What does disciplinary literacy look like in those classes? So to kind of get some common understanding and to figure out our current reality, we really dug into some data. We looked at ISAF's data. We looked at fall A reading data across the district. So we had some 3rd grade through 11th grade data, and we had some 3rd grade through 9th grade data. And what we found with that, we averaged about 73% of our students meeting benchmark at that grades 3 through 11. Joellen talks a lot about our strong tier 1. We want our students to be at least 80% or above. So being a little bit below that, when we dug into the data, we found that the more advanced through the grade levels, students were dealing with more complex text. They were requiring more critical thinking. And of course, we needed to bump up our instruction as our students started to have to face those higher level skills with that. So for us personally, as a group, we did some professional learning. We had that conversation of what is disciplinary literacy? What does that look like in action? Whether I'm teaching at the elementary level, at the middle school level, or at the high school level, and those very specific content areas. We had lots of things that we were able to look at as far as research with articles, books, webinars. And we really just said, okay, this is what we need to know. And now this is what we need to do with that. And so we revisited our core instruction. Are we making sure that students are reading, writing, speaking, listening, having the opportunity to collaborate and do that critical thinking across every period of their school day? Are we making sure that the experiences that they have are relevant and they're engaged in that learning? And just kind of made sure that we ourselves were kind of going back to our buildings to make sure that we personally were doing that in our classroom, but we were also having conversations within our PLCs, within our buildings, our leadership teams, and just continuing that conversation. Like Joellen said, this first year has been a lot of learning and understanding. We're kind of moving into that implementation stage. We had a meeting in January, and it was great to have them see. I asked them, you know, so what have you learned? That's been like an aha for you, but what have you done with that learning that's impacting our students? And we had, I wish I had a picture that I should have thought about that, but we had a chart, a poster board with sticky notes all over it about the impact that they're starting to see within the teachers that they work with, what's happening in the classrooms, and then the differences that that's making with students. So we're really working now at closing that gap. We know better. How can we make sure that we're doing better? And we'll continue this next year with more of that implementation and continue to measure the impact. Okay. All yours, Jane.
And I have the pleasure of working with teacher leaders in the area of mathematics. And there's nothing better than getting a group of teacher leaders together who are passionate about their content area. So we learn so much from each other, just having the opportunity to get together and learn from each other in the room. Our two areas are also linked to the district goal areas. Goal number 2, strengthening tier 1 instruction, and then building on our elementary success to transfer to secondary success. So in the upper grades. So far, we've been, since COVID, it's been a shift. Our elementary scores start in the 80 percentile, proficient. And then as we get to the secondary level, it starts to dip. So we're still working on closing that gap and getting them to pre-COVID success rates. So we have also done similar steps to the literacy group where we've been analyzing data. We've done book studies. We've had the opportunity to go to professional learning together, the ICTM conference, just spent 2 days with some teachers at the Building Thinking Classrooms conference, and then revisiting best practices. What does it look like K-12 in a classroom? And then taking it back to their buildings. And each building has unique goals. So based on their building data, they have different goals that they're taking back to their teams and sharing all the new learning.
Thanks, Jane and Angie and Joellen. I get to go last, so while you're thinking about all your questions, I'll take all the questions for all the areas. Jim Piper, Science Coordinator. We put together a team. It's probably not the largest team of the task force, but I think we have some really good team members that can really help us to figure out where we're at with science instruction. Science is one of those areas where you do a lot of inquiry, you do a lot of asking questions, and a lot of things can change when you're teaching science. It's not a strictly you're staying right on the same path. It can go a lot of different directions. So what we're trying to do is figure out where is our best path for our students that we can get to make our science instruction successful. And science and STEM kind of go together. So we're having a lot of things merging at the same time right now.
And so our team has really been looking at, again, the same kind of things the other teams are looking at, the webinars, and we've got a couple of books that we've been studying. Am I supposed to be flipping this thing? Oh, sorry. I was like, wait a minute, how come it's not? There's our team, by the way. Good representation, at least across the district, middle school, elementary, junior high, high school. And again, ties into our tier 1 instruction, our core areas of science. So one of the things we like to do is look at data. Well, you know, the state, we really only have data, state data for 5th, 8th, and 10th grade. So we've been in the process of collecting more data that's mirrors some of those states. So some of those released items from the state tests, we're using those as benchmarking items so that we can measure our students at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the end of the year, and kind of measure their progress. So we've completed middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and now we're working on 3rd through 5th and 9th and 10th. We use a lot of the trade materials and the research that's out there. What is happening in science instruction? What are the best practices that we can do to make sure that our students are successful? And really looking at what our current reality is. With a district our size, it's a lot of different buildings, a lot of different teachers teaching science, especially at the elementary level. We want to make sure that we're keeping that as clearly articulated as possible. So that make sure that there is some continuity so that our students have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So we want to make sure that all students get a good experience when it comes to their science learning. So again, our group has been communicating some of their learnings, not only within the group, but within their teams at the school buildings. Whether that be their small PLCs or their building. So we're going to continue to develop our plan, and we're going to look at all the different directions that it goes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have 100 questions.
I have one.
I wanted to clarify for math, we still exceed the state, grades 3 through 12. So the whole state had a dip in secondary math, and we still exceed the state average. But we're trying to go back because we have high expectations for ourselves.
That's right. That's right. So I do want to thank the coordinators for coming in tonight to share that. We have shared some information on early literacy, but we'll share some more in the spring. Tonight you heard academic core. Mr. Butcher will be here in April to talk about college and career readiness. And we've shared some information on climate and culture specifically related to attendance and chronic absenteeism. So we will have ongoing reports. In putting the structure in place this year, it really has just put more operational guidelines around some structures we had in place. Just really want to thank Mr. Horton for getting that teacher leadership structure in place. I think we all know that working from the inside out and learning from each other, no one knows that content better than the people who are in the classroom teaching it. So having that kind of model where it's inside out and working together, I think has a great potential to have a very positive impact on student learning. So I really appreciate all the teachers who are putting their efforts behind this. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
A trade thing at the high school next week, isn't there? Is it trade opportunity at the high school? Is it, it's an opportunity for students in the 25th? Tuesday. Trades, right? The trade fair. Yeah. So I thought in the evening. Parents.
Okay. Okay, well, that was the final item on our agenda. I just need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.